All right. Hello, everybody, and
So-
welcome back to another episode of General Geekery. With me, as always, is JD.
Hello.
And we have a special guest with us today, Aaron. Edward.
Kind of confused.
Edward Aaron.
That's why I go on Facebook and all the other
I was
stuff.
gonna say Edward
Yeah.
Aaron. Right.
Yeah. So I got that backwards there because I'm like not quite dyslexic, like half of dyslexic.
I
So,
actually went by Aaron many times in my life because that was my original name.
Gotcha. All
Long
right.
story.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
In high school or after high school, I told my parents I wanted to change my name to Spike just one time. That didn't go over well.
Can't imagine.
I
that
just stayed
one.
with the same name for a really long time. So no,
Yeah.
I'm
can't
not
imagine
Spike.
that. Yeah, Spike. No, that just sounds weird. We've kind of, JD and I've kind of like been putting off talking about the viewer invitational challenge. Just
Put
because,
off talking about everything else. So
Yeah.
why not that too?
just because we've both got a lot going on right now. Yeah, we are still both customizing, but neither one of us are kind of in the right mindset to put the energy into the customizing challenge. So JD, how did you phrase that?
It's not canceled.
Right.
We are doing what they do in Washington, D.C. And I learned about this on the West Wing. We are doing what's called a continuing resolution. We will continue discussing the resolution of when we want this challenge to have a deadline.
Exactly. So for anybody that's still interested in doing this, the original challenge was make a custom for any particular holiday that you would like. It can be as mainstream or as goofy as you want. Even goofier, the better. And then we were going to do a reveal on the show. Anybody that participated was automatically invited to the show. Or you could submit the customs to me and I will do a reveal in the General Geekery podcast Facebook page. So if you were worried that you weren't going to get a chance to participate because of the deadline, guess what? You can still participate. So the only rule is if you make a custom for it, don't post it. Just hang on to it for a little bit. And then once the continuing resolution resolutes, then we'll get back to you and we'll get you a deadline.
Great art takes time.
Exactly.
And aside of this challenge or any other customizing anything, no matter what, I've always been a chronic procrastinator. I mean, of course, that
I would
invades
say
my
I was a
hobby,
chronic
but-
procrastinator, but I'll get back to that later.
Exactly. I'm losing my train of thought as this is
Yeah.
So
And as
we're
JD
working
said,
on it. I'm working on a thing. I started it. I had energy for it for a while,
yeah,
but that was right after it was. I haven't had the best time since we announced this. I've had some
stuff.
I've had the rug pulled out from under me.
Yeah. So
And the timing has not been good.
Right.
So unfortunately, I mean, I could finish it, but the customizing I'm doing is more minimal than this. So I'm sorry. I don't know.
we'll get back to it. And as JD said, great art takes time. And one of the questions I get about art is where do I get those awesome casts of heads that I use for my customizing? And I get them from our guest on the show. So welcome to General Geekery. Thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
For having me on.
I-
It's really, you guys reached out.
I also use a lot of those headcasts. Brian shares with me. I should be getting a new round of them shortly.
Yeah, I'll get
Yeah,
that.
I've got those head casts are amazing. I don't. So
I
many
have
ideas come
one,
from just
two, three,
looking through the head
4,
cast.
5, 6, 7. I have 7 customs that I'm working on right now, and they're all using heads from that I got from you. And most of
cool.
the last customs that I have made, like my alley vipers, just like
I saw that.
any of those female customs that I've done recently, I've all those heads have come from our esteemed guest.
I've started 2 customs this weekend that use your head sculpt, so I
Nice.
appreciate it greatly. Yes, you do very good work, and I'm glad you have the patience for that shit. And other people are good with the process of things, because I could never, ever maintain the patience or the give a shit to continue to really perfect it. So
It's a process. You start out, and when I first started out, there wasn't really a clear way of doing it that I found. So I just had to watch a lot of YouTube videos. Didn't really reach out to many people, just tried to learn it on my own, and kind of came up with my own way of doing things, studying other people's stuff.
as great artists do.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I got into casting because I used to buy a lot of head casts. I have for a long time. And then I got to a point where I wanted to start making some of my own sculpts and recasting them, making modifications to other ones. And lately I've gotten into sizing heads up and down.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
Those are my favorites.
yes,
a lot of
absolutely.
larger heads, making them down to 1/18 scale, which is my favorite scale to work with. And then taking a lot of the smaller heads, like a lot of early 2000 era small head figures, and
Those are my bread and butter. I love those.
Yes.
small.
Yeah, I love those because so many of the new sculpt figures had fantastic head sculpts that were too big for the bodies that they were already on, let alone the larger, the 4-inch stuff that was going to come later,
Yeah.
where they just look ridiculous. I mean, like the Valor versus Venom heads, most of them were undersized, and you fix that with a lot of those head sculpts. I'm like, my Armor Tech heavy duty that I did for Star Brigade, that's one of your upsized
Cool.
Valor versus Venom heavy duty casts. So
yeah, it's a good sculpt. Some of them, the sculpts are not so good.
Yeah.
I tried taking one of the versions of what was it, Wild Bill, with a removable hat, tried making it bigger, and the proportions on the face were so wonky that it wasn't really worth it. It just was.
I love that figure for all of the same reasons that I love the art of Rob Liefeld. I don't care about the proportions. God damn it. Sometimes it just fascinates me.
Yeah.
So some of those Valor versus Venom figures with the really crazy proportions, like high tech, short torso, long legs, teeny tiny head, gargantuan shoulders. I'm like, pouches everywhere. I'm like, Rob Liefeld, somebody sculpting this thing, love that man's art like I do.
Right.
So whatever.
Yeah, no, I was looking at some of that stuff the other day, and I was like, man, those proportions are wonky, but it's still just like endearing, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, there's a lot of things that don't age very well. Back then, I remember there weren't a lot of fans because the wonkiness was evident, was different than the Olo ring figures.
Yeah.
But I still got what I could, and now I'm just kind of upsizing some of the good sculpts, because a lot of the original sculpts as I were very good before they were sent off to be reproduced. And then the final product that came out maybe got tinkered with a little bit in a bad way.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff, and it's like, man, that's not what we got.
Uh-huh.
If we got this. This had been fantastic. Yeah.
One of my, sometimes I do wax nostalgic for that era, but again, my feelings aren't, I can appreciate them in a doofy sort of way. I mean, I tried numerous times to take new sculpt parts and integrate them into other customs I do, and sometimes it's real tough to do.
Yeah.
So instead, I end up like using design elements that sort of nod at it, than trying to actually adapt it. But it really helps that I've got some head sculpts that were like the Steel Brigade guys. They all had teeny tiny heads
Yeah.
that should have been bigger. The like Stalker upsized a little bit. And then some of the ones that you've shrunk down, and then some of the ones that you've made from other people's customs that looked like maybe you were, I'm like, some of these are they're just too cool. I really appreciate the creative freedom it gives me. And I don't even hate painting eyes as much as I used to.
That's saying something right there. And I've said it a million times, a custom lives or dies. For me, a custom lives or dies by the head that you use. And that is, to me, that is the most important piece of my custom. And I am very picky about what I use. And the stuff that you have sent has expanded the not only the customs that I've made, but the type of customs that I've made. I would never have made like Battle Core Alley Vipers before, but I'm like, holy shit, this head. Just look at this head. I was like, this is a Battle Core Alley. I can make a fucking awesome custom out of this because it's the right size. It'll fit with what I've got on hand. And I mean, that yellow and black one I made just from what I had in the fodder bin. And it's one of the best customs I've done in a while. It's one of the ones I've been the most happiest with. And yeah, it's fantastic to have that freedom like that. And, I've been working on my female specialty Vipers and just having a wide array of different female heads. So I'm not using the same head over and over and over again. It's fantastic.
Well, I've got a lot more to send your way soon. I'm really looking forward to is shrinking a 1/12 scale Hela head.
Ooh.
And another Black Widow head and some others. The process takes a while, but I've figured out some ways to speed it up. And I'm working on so many right now, especially head shrinks. And it's kind of hard to keep track of it at times.
I can't even imagine. So now I'm not sure I've ever seen.
I've been waiting. I'm gonna show off. Okay, hang on. I started this one the other day. Okay, wait. Remember back in 2011 when Iceberg was the club's membership figure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers the epic disappointment that figure was, right?
I like that figure.
You clearly do not remember that figure, sir.
I have it sitting out on the deck of my flag right now.
No,
I knew that another head that was supposed to be made that didn't make the cut somehow.
Right, but to shortcut it by just casting and adapting the existing head sculpt of the real American hero Iceberg, 25 years later and putting it on a premium collector figure. What? No,
It's perfect on,
unacceptable.
but I'm kind
But
of
see,
too.
but see, it wasn't even when I got mine. I realized its biggest problem wasn't even the head sculpt. I didn't like the proportions. I didn't like half the body parts bothered me. So way back then, I fixed it. I fixed it like I fixed everything that comes in my collection that I don't like. But I went back to it last week and I'm like, you know what? I can fix this further. I can repaint some parts and he needs a better head sculpt. So I found the Stalker head sculpt that you did of the Joe versus Cobra, the G.I. Joe versus Cobra head sculpt of Stalker. But oh, I can't pick it up on a shitty camera.
No.
But
Funny because it's the body is right underneath my head. If you move it over, yeah, there you go. Now I can see it. My little
can you see it?
windows there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're
All right. So I took the beret off. I mean, I dremeled it off, but because he's getting different, he's getting a custom hat. But until I saw the head sculpt without the shitty paint apps that Hasbro slapped on it, because that was one that was always painted, so it was sloppy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this head sculpt was based on Danny Glover, the Roger Murtaugh of it all. This thing looks so much like him. I'm just like, he has the disposition Iceberg always had in my head. This was divine intervention that got this new revised fixed version of the club shitty ass figure. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah. Well, I noticed it looked like you used different legs and stuff. What else did you use on
Oh
that?
yeah. The lower legs were from Dollar General Duke with the original 13 boot sculpts. I just painted the fur where because what I did was I used the foreshadow legs from Rise of Cobra, and I replaced the shitty spirit legs, but I sculpted the fur to make the transition where I chopped off to join the boots to the Storm Shadow legs. And then I chopped down the fur around the coat because I mean Iceberg only had it around his neck. He didn't have the shoulder things that the Snow Serpents did when they reused those parts. So I chopped that off. And I just
JD, you got to talk into the camera, dude.
oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry.
And yeah, unfortunately, your mic doesn't pick it up real well.
Oh my god. Oh boy.
Am I close enough to my mic?
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if he gets like off to the side, it just stops picking up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he doesn't hear it.
No, I don't hear it.
See what you did though. Really good. I like what you did with it. I
Sorry.
done with mine too and made it different from how it originally came out. I like what you did. The proportions are really good on that.
Yeah, definitely.
He's got hang on. A while ago, I bought one of those furry Russian hats from Marauder Task Force for a custom, but I could never find the right custom for it. Well, I did. I glued some goggles on the front of it.
I was just thinking
and I primered it.
Yeah, I was just thinking that hat would be perfect for him. And I
I just glued his goggles on.
I can't think of the name of the hat, and I should know because they were all over Ukraine.
Yeah, I was gonna say you lived where people wore those for realsies.
Yes.
So
Is it, yeah, I don't know.
What's that?
Was it a babushka? Or
No,
is that
babushka
something-
is grandma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, babushka is grandma.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Not
It's,
that I have a grand more, but other
uh,
people's grand. Hey,
I want to
babushka.
say it's mamushka, but I don't know if that's right or not. I think it's mamushka, but I'm not positive. I'd have to look it up again. But yeah,
I don't know,
no,
but
grandma.
it makes me want a real life one. Sorry, I just didn't get around to painting the goggles. But
You should have said something while I was in Ukraine. I'd have gotten one for you.
well, yeah, but it never occurred to me that people maybe, I don't think it ever occurred to me that maybe people still wore those because
Yeah.
I mean I don't. Plus, you were too busy.
I saw some
No,
hipster wearing one the other day. I
oh,
was gonna
see.
tell him nice hat, but then I didn't. I don't know why. Could've
Yeah,
been
no, I
nice.
got one of my buddies that I was there with. He got one for it all the time.
Yeah.
Plus, dude, you kept going like to the Ukraine shops to look for those bootleg shitty military knockoff figures for me. So, you couldn't be distracted looking for some damn furry hat that would be practical in the winter where I live.
Oh yeah, no, it was the market.
Because I love boots.
So, but and now you don't go over there anymore because, well, you were a smart cookie, sir.
I'm glad I'm not there.
But but yeah, so many of my customs have utilized the head sculpts that Brian shares with me, and I know he's fixing to send some more to me, so
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, no,
Well, I
um,
produce more than I can use, and I'm not a seller at this point. I just kind of I give them away in trades, or I just give them to. I'm in a local group, the Utah GI Joe Outpost, or it's the GI Joe Utah Outpost.
okay.
So, and we before COVID, we had monthly meetings when we could, and I had this foot started making casts just while I was in the process of trying to perfect the casting process, and I would just take all the test shots and dump them in there. And any of the guys in the group, they're all cool. I just, if they want some, I just let them have them out of there because they're just all surplus. A lot of times I only cast a piece for a custom, and then I've got the mold and I'll make parts until the mold craps out, or
Yeah.
I've got a lot of molds that I started using better rubber that don't crap out. So it's kind of fun to have a library back to. I actually have to, I'm making some Dino Hunter helmet head combos for
Nice.
3 guys in a group I'm in that and I'm just going to send them to them for free because they were interested.
Funny
yeah.
you say that because I'm contemplating doing a Dino Hunter set, and I haven't.
Oh, I've got some good heads for you then.
Right on. Yeah, I might pick you up on that then.
I don't have any particular need to make modern versions because I have the Real American Hero versions, not the originals. I didn't have it originally, nor do I have the ones that I bought way back in the late 1990s. No, these are ones I got off eBay for like a killing, like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I remember when you got
Boy,
them.
I'm glad.
4 years back
Yeah.
then.
But I got both of them. I got Ambush and Lowlight. They weren't complete. Each one had one of their accessories, but they didn't. But I got both Ambush and Lowlight in really good condition for like $90 shipped.
Yeah, you couldn't
I
get their accessory for $90 shipped.
I couldn't I must have been searching at just the right time for that kind of divine intervention, because can you imagine what they go for right now?
I still check it out because I've wanted to cast that goofy dinosaur, the one that's arms crossed like this and the on his face.
Yes.
I have that set, and since got rid of a lot of my collection years ago, but that one, the bronze bombers, those are some that
Oh,
I have a nostalgia for.
yeah.
That
Boy,
bronze
I skipped
bomber-
getting those from Small Joe's, and I'm kicking myself for it because they had them for a long time.
I had some of those from Small Joe's. I had some of those from eBay way back in the day when they weren't, premium priced everything.
Yeah.
I did have the because I bought my Dino Hunter set in 99. Ooh, I don't get a chance to brag about it very often. In the ojoe.com archives.
Yes. We have
There the really shite scans of the Dino Hunters Desert Fox repaint
Yeah.
are mine.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
They're credited to me. They were done so long ago that we didn't have digital cameras yet. It was laid on the flatbed scanner and scanned on each side. So it's all like shittily lit and from all the
I've been a lurker on there since probably as soon as I discovered internet, and it was only by accident. I was looking up pictures of Lou Reed, a musician from the Velvet Underground, and I for some reason on the Google search there was a G.I. Joe custom Lou Reed. I was like, that's strange. Clicked on the link, it took me to, it was either the Bivouac or something, I don't know.
Oh wow.
And
that's
I was kind of like, huh. And then I just went through and I started looking at all the cool stuff that people were doing. And I remembered customizing as a kid. And so that kind of got me back into having an active interest in it. And that was, that was a long time ago now, but I never did any posting on Joe Customs, Yo Joe, or General's Joe's, anything like that, but I was definitely there in some way or another, checking out what people were doing and posting. And, now I've gotten to know, to whatever degree, most of the people involved in those projects, and it's pretty cool.
I was going to ask, do you customize? Because I'm pretty sure I haven't seen anything that you've done.
I do, and I'm a member of the Joe Customs group and some other ones. I haven't posted customs in a long time, other than on Utah G.I. Joe Outpost.
Okay.
I do some exclusive work for. We all pitch in and we do projects.
That's cool. That's cool. They have internet in Utah. I wasn't sure, so that's cool. But I don't know where they are. Never mind. I'm sorry. That's rude.
Well, I mean, he's like the next state over, so I mean, it's not that.
I mean,
and it took them a lot of time, but they're hard workers. All those wives of mine. I've got what 98. No, I'm just joking. No, not the.
No.
Straight face. I like that. That was good.
Anybody, it's your own choice if you want 98 wives.
But plenty.
I still haven't gotten to one, so at this point, that's not happening. So
I got two different times, and so it wasn't me and two ladies at the altar, and we weren't married all at the same time. I have to keep this linear, otherwise when I'm in Utah I have to watch about how I speak about the stuff. You guys, I don't know where you're living.
I live in Colorado. Yeah.
JD, where are you?
I'm in Western New York.
Okay.
I'm in Western New York. Canada is 5 minutes that way. But I've been all over the United States, and I've been to Utah, and really what I've seen of Utah, we were driving through on our to and from return trips, moving to California from the East Coast. We went through Utah both ways. There is a whole lot of nothing there. So my jokes come from the fact that 25 years ago, it didn't look like there was even establishment from except for the highway where we were driving through. So I wasn't sure how fast time had moved since for Utah.
The only
Just
time I've been through Utah is when my wife and I eloped to Las Vegas to get married.
oh, that's right. They do have airports in Utah because
And
I have
well,
flown
that's true
into
because I have
Salt
flown
Lake
into
City.
the airport in Utah more times than I can count coming back into the United States.
Yes, I have flown into Salt Lake City, flown in and out of every time.
Yeah,
A few times. So I've never actually, I never got off. I got off the plane. I never got out of the airport.
Yeah, same here. I've been to
Well,
that
there's airport, really. You have to go into downtown, and downtown Salt Lake used to be where it was at for me. I spent a lot. I mean, I moved here when I was 12, but I bounced back and forth between different places, working different jobs, different contracting work. And but here is my home because it's where my parents are. And but once on vacation, oddly enough, there was this head shop my dad took me to. Well, he's not a weed guy, he's a Mormon, but they also had books, and they had t-shirts, records, and they had comic books. And I went to go check out and get some G.I. Joe, and that's where I discovered Action Force comics for the first time.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff going on in Utah, but right now it's really, the Salt Lake City area is becoming gentrified. It's growing. The town where my parents live used to be a stoplight rural town with just fields and cows and grass, and now it's suburbs. And there's a swamp behind my house where I used to explore, and that's going to get all filled in. I don't know. It's, in other words, it's growing here, but things are still a little bit behind the times here.
Well,
that's not
I
unlike
should
where
also
I work, so I understand that for sure.
Well,
sorry, folks. Our just technical difficulties. I started the meeting. I don't have, and JD has a paid subscription, so he should have started the meeting.
Why is do that? Internet? They had to milk a cow or something. But anyway, yeah.
So we were talking about your customs. I'm curious to know what type of customs that you like to make.
All kinds. Anything 1/18 scale. Mainly G.I. Joe, but I do dabble in some Star Wars and some Marvel. Of course, going back to G.I. Joe, it's like every iteration possible. I try to upgrade and update in that scale, and that's where head shrinking comes in, or head expansion. But I'm old. I'm 50, so I'm of the age where I remember the Adventure Team very well, and they were my favorite thing as a kid before Star Wars, and then eventually G.I. Joe got rebooted. But pretty eclectic, just all different kinds of customs. I used to, so on the Joe Customs Facebook page or in their group, you'll find some of my stuff under the dumb name Felix Stratton. It was just sort of it was an account I made it was going to be just for customizing, not for anything else.
You do look a bit like Mercer version 2.
Yeah, I'm more like him. He's not Felix Stratton. Felix Stratton isn't a popular character at all, but it's just kind of a joke, inside joke. But the I posted under that name, yeah. And eventually Facebook blocked me out of my account and wanted me to prove that I was indeed Felix Stratton. And I didn't have it. So I just decided, well, my Facebook, Edward Aaron, I don't care. I'll just rejoin the group under that. And I posted a bunch of customs under that name. But then at some point, I got out of customizing and I was focused on other things. And so I left that group and I left a lot of other groups I was in. But then I got sucked back in. And now I'm in that group again, but there are no customs, I don't think, under Edward Aaron, but there still are remnants of my ghost of Felix Stratton days on there.
Look,
Come a long way with the photography. A lot of those old photographs were so bad and washed out.
boy, right?
thought I
No
was-
kidding. I know.
Oh,
I
I
had a-
like hearing this rant from Brian where he critiques all of his old photos, and I don't know the difference, so whatever.
Yeah, 'cause when I first started doing it, I was not. I used the shittiest digital camera possible, and then I went to Afghanistan and spent most of my money on camera gear. So
yeah,
I became a semi-professional photographer as a result, and now it's like I look at my old pictures and I'm like, man, that is just horrible, horrible, horrible.
yeah. I feel the same way, and it doesn't matter how good the camera is. Really, it's just, well, it does matter if the camera is good or not. But when you get to know lighting and these different things, I even made my own photo box, but I
Yeah.
just didn't. And I'd done photography in college. I just didn't get action figure photography, which is a very different thing than portraits or scenery. But
Absolutely.
yeah. And so I haven't really done any of the photography in a while. I've just been making customs, and if I share it with anybody, it's just a crappy pic on my iPhone because it's not going to be a presentation piece. Eventually I will get back into photographing, but working more on trying to get down more on the casting side of things. Like
Think
trying to learn from,
somebody does, because yeah, I know JD and I both be lost if we didn't have that as a resource.
yeah, and it's a fun hobby. I mean, casting can, like learning to do it, it's good for all kinds of purposes, reproducing things. If you don't have a 3D printer, which I don't have yet,
Either I want one.
it's a good way to just reproduce an item that, pretty much the same size if you do it carefully. And sometimes it's a little rough around the edges and you have to clean it up, but that's how pretty much most of casting is. And with most people I've seen, I mean, there are some where I was getting I've gotten parts in the past years and years ago from Broken Arrow Toys. They're not around anymore because
No,
they're off. They're doing the Dynamo.
I'm not.
Well, yeah.
Legend.
You
Yeah,
know,
I know Alyosha before.
I used to just be amazed at his work and how professional it was, and glad he got into toy making because he's good at it. And
Yes.
a lot of the club exclusives for the convention custom classes are really cool. But there's a lot out there: Raging Spoon, Star Wars Geek.
Yes.
Give me if I forget anybody. There's a lot out there that some of them are seasonal, some of them
Yeah, like AVAX.
on.
AVAX Lab.
Yeah, AVAX Lab. Yeah, I'm still waiting for his shop to open up because he's still capable of doing stuff that I'm not yet or haven't gotten around to doing yet.
We had him on the show a couple months ago. He's a fantastic guy to talk to. Just we had a blast with him on the show.
Yes.
Well, I've normally caught up with the shows. I'll have to go back, see if I remember that one. I may have missed the show. I don't know how.
I don't
s-
remember shit. I got the memory of a goldfish. And you know what? I don't worry about who listens, who doesn't. We're not taken. We're not offended.
No.
It's cool. We all have a lot going on.
JD
Last couple years,
beside himself when you told him that you actually watched the show. So
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was like, oh my god. I texted him immediately. I'm like, oh dude, he already watches us. I'm like, yeah, it's not all that often that even online I get to run into people who actually listen to us. So I always, because we don't have a lot of reach, which is fine. I'm surprised anybody listens at all. But
any out there, I watch, follow, and if I don't know about it, I eventually find it because there's a lot of content out there. Here, I learned stuff that, and I should know better. I went to school for art, and your episode about using a wet palette, I'm like, just the light bulb went off over my head. Like, duh, why don't I do that with this? Because I live in a very arid climate.
Yeah.
And you have, Tamiya paints or any other paints like that, you leave them out too long and they dry before you can use them sometimes.
Yeah, I live in Colorado. Our relative humidity is 7%. So I feel,
yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, no, that's we're both happy that you watch the show and that people. I mean, that's why we're here, is to get people interested in customizing and to when JD and I both got into custom, a lot of people were, for lack of a better term, gatekeeping on their techniques. And if they knew how to do something cool, they wouldn't share it. It's like, how did you do this? And they wouldn't, like, it's a trade secret. I'm like, that helps nobody. It just makes you look like an ass. And I said back then, if I ever got good at this, I wouldn't do that. And I think I'm halfway decent. And
I was gonna say, and now you have a YouTube thing that's dedicated to doing exactly that.
Exactly. Is passing on that information for other people.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we can do a show about how to cast on the cheap. You don't have to have an expensive pressure pot. It's very affordable if you do it right. Of course, it's always good to have the best tools, but shrinking and expanding molds, it's all stuff that once you sort it out, you put together the best ideas from what you've gathered out there. And then if you accidentally stumble upon another way of doing things, it's, all the better to share.
Yeah.
Because even though most people are into 3D printing and it's getting to that point where that's where, casting will go, it's still a fun thing to do, to reproduce parts or just to make quick test shots. I mean, they make mold making silicone that you can prototype something and within a half hour have it make a mold, cast it, and have a part ready.
Man.
But the problem is I'm also a procrastinator. So oftentimes we're
some of this the 3D printing as casting, that's become real prolific. There's a Facebook group that I'm in where I think it's called Smuggler's Den or something, and there's a lot of guys with the 3D printers that post in there, and like they're 3D printing all stuff that's coming out right now on Disney Plus. Like new episode of the Book of Boba Fett dropped, and a few days later, I'm seeing pictures that people are making of the customs they're making because they 3D printed some of the characters that showed up in that episode of the Book of Boba Fett just a few days before. So, and then they're painting them up. So it's like there's entire scenes from that show that these 3D printing guys are customizing that they can fill And then there's a lot of stuff where they take like vintage style stuff and they're expanding
Yes.
on that too.
Seen some of those.
Yeah.
So
They've made customs of the like as you say characters from the book of Boba Fett, and they make them in the Star Wars style. And it's like, yeah, sure, it's 5 points of articulation. The sculpts are real soft, but I love it.
see,
It looks like a vintage figure from the new episode, from the latest episode of Boba Fett. I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah, see, I love that Hasbro did the retro stuff with the Mandalorian. I love that they did that. And I love that they've dipped their toe there a little bit. And I want to see more of that retro styling new stuff in the vintage style. But then I got into this Facebook group and I'm seeing all this where then I realized the few Mandalorian waves that they've done, I realized they haven't even scratched the surface on characters that they could be, because these 3D printing guys have done all of those bounty hunters that were coming after Din Djarin in episode or in chapter 3 of The Mandalorian, after he takes the child back and all those bounty hunters descend on him. Some of these 3D printing customizers, they've made all those bounty hunters. They have a full lineup of those bounty hunters on their toy shelves with their Hasbro stuff. It's awesome, but it's way out of my wheelhouse.
Well, even with casting, you can get that. I've worked on some stuff in the past. The second I watched The Mandalorian and knew that there wasn't going to be a Grogu figure coming out anytime soon, I was on it. I sculpted one up. Used the same technique that the Hasbro ones use, where you've got ball socket arms, the move head on a ball joint, and the proportions were a little bit big for what I wanted, but I didn't have I was going off of a Clone Wars Yoda that was a little bit bigger, and so I thought, well, let me take that and make it smaller. I actually used a Boss Fight Studio Dragon egg as the original proportion for the head to sculpt over.
I like that.
And then I just made the figure for just friends and family for the holidays for guys in my group. And I'm kind of doing the same thing now with a different one. I wish my friend Candy, she has one down in her office, one of those Yodas. I put magnets in and made them fridge magnets, but I'm working on this little guy right now as a prize for a photo contest for my group. This will be done by the time they see it, but let's see if I can. Is that coming into focus?
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect.
Itty bit. It's a walk link. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Wait a minute. The unarticulated itty bitty baby Ewok Nippet from the Saga collection. You've sculpted a whole body where it used to be trapped in the little basket.
Yeah. And
shit.
I'm trying to get it to the point where it'll sit down properly.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Oh my God. Nippet has a body.
Nice.
Wow.
I didn't even know that it had a name. I knew what it was, but I didn't know it had a name.
Well, okay, I love Ewoks. I am a lifelong fan. I've never understood the hatred for Ewoks.
I hate Ewoks.
So I like all the vintage Ewoks, I can name them. So many of the Ewoks that have been named since I can name, but then I start looking at like these recent like canon guides and stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm so out of the loop. I can't even. I'm like, oh, there's these whole Ewok storylines in this other comic book I didn't know existed called Star Wars Adventures, and they're all canon, and I'm like, okay, I am old. I have reached the wall where I can still take in a lot of the new stuff, but man, nothing like I could when I was a teenager reading the Expanded Universe book on shelf and the comic books in the store, either there was less to keep up with, or I'm really just getting old, or both. I don't know.
I'm gonna.
But
All the information, all the stories, and all of that stuff is just, it's almost too much for one brain to handle. So it's a good thing there's a fandom, so you can learn things that you never knew before.
I mean,
know
from reading all those books as a teenager, I could name most of the aliens in Jabba's palace or the cantina, but this later and I can name a bunch of the prequel stuff like that too. But like uh-oh.
I'm here still. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, my cord had come undone.
No worries. You got it.
Fix-
Wouldn't be our show if we didn't have some technical difficulties.
Yeah,
No
really.
kidding. So, it's kind of a tried and true to English, motherfucker. Do you speak it? No, not very well. But it is my only spoken language. But I'm not. Yeah.
Can you speak any of those fan-made languages that are out there? Oh my goodness, I'm on low battery again. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still.
I'm still here.
There we go.
Okay. I just had to get this connected back.
No worries.
Man, anything can go wrong while I'm here.
It will on our show. That's I guarantee
On our show, definitely.
Yeah,
So
I guarantee you that's what's causing it tonight.
Yeah, but speaking of languages, there's people that speak fluent Klingon, and
I mean, I can quote a couple of the alien stuff off the movie, but like I can't go outside of whatever they said on screen. Like, I mean, what is that when Anakin says to Sebulba, Ichumi Dopa Slamo? I don't know what it means. There's a subtitle. I don't know. I don't care. I like quoting the line. But not that much otherwise. Although in my phone, Brian is listed as Nervad, which is the Mandalorian word for brother. So, and he's been in my phone as Nervod for 12 years probably.
Oh yeah, at least.
So yeah, I mean, I fringe with that kind of stuff, but then I can't speak another language that exists here on Earth either. I'm not, my brain just, it's a wonder I took in one language at all as completely as I did.
Yeah, my wife can speak Russian and she's learning Arabic. And I picked up just enough Russian to get by when I was in Ukraine and a little bit of Dari when I was in Afghanistan. And I don't remember.
Yeah, but your wife can also play the harp, and you definitely can't do that.
I can play with it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same thing. And it's large and probably expensive, and you probably should not. But
yeah. So what's your favorite thing to customize then? Do you have a character or a style or?
I like Adventure Team customs.
Nice.
Back in the day, I didn't really have many adversaries except for the space cavemen, the intruders, strong men from another world.
That sounds awful.
I
you know what? I'm glad I was born after that era. Sorry, that's just too cheesy.
They were meant for that line because they're just so much shorter. They're more like the Super Joe from the late 70s size. But I did get into head shrinking those into various sizes. And I made some intruders. I think they're just silly enough and just sort of a niche thing that like,
they fit, those kind of things fit perfectly well as retcons of the Real American Hero line. That kind of shit is right in the same. Like the Invaders, they're totally a precursor to some of that shit from Cobra Island. But
I've noticed
it's funny how well some of that stuff
in
blend.
the stuff that you sent me, and it's like Maybe I should make an Adventure Team custom. I have not ever made an Adventure Team custom.
Yeah, I love the Adventure Team, and but I like the more true military stuff too, and sci-fi elements. Big fan of Snake Eyes, so anytime I can make a Snake Eyes custom, I know that's kind of like saying, that's not really saying a lot. Everybody could probably say that, but it depends on what Snake Eyes you're talking about. Where my favorite version is the Larry Hama version, and absolutely not the cartoon version.
Fair enough.
And
I don't know that I've ever made a Snake Eyes custom.
I have made, like, especially, I just got some really good head sculpts from Level 7 Toys.
I've seen some stuff that looks really cool.
Good that I plan on using, not to recast or anything, but for personal use. But they're really good unmasked heads, and probably going to order some more because they're more from the comic, where they have the face reveal where they show the the different scars he's got. Level 7, they've got his normal Vietnam boonie hat.
Yeah.
And the one where he's got his cap on with his bandaged face.
Oh, nice.
I'm trying to remember what number of comic I used to.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't remember where they did the
25 and 26.
He's going to meet his family at the airport.
Yeah, I think it was 25 and 26.
Yeah,
sounds about right. I want to say
24, 25. Sure. I made a Snake Eyes figure. Looking at the parts, okay, I made this in 2009. I made a couple of Snake Eyes over the years, but if I'm going to customize the Snake Eyes, it's not going to be all black, and it's not going to be all tactical and all. I'm going to do some crazy shit with it. I don't know why I felt the need to do this, but I reimagined him a bit. I made him more military, and he's also got Liefeldian hair sticking out of the top of his mask, and he's got proportions that make it look like, I don't know, perhaps Mike Allred drew it. So that is my Snake Eyes custom. It is a slight redesign of his normally accepted look.
I definitely want to do one of the. I'm waiting for the Vietnam Kickstarter from Marauder Task Force, because I really want to do the Vietnam Stalker, Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes at some point in time.
Yeah, I should have got in on that. I didn't.
Brian and I also both have our Arashikage tattoos. Yeah. So
love it. I've been thinking about getting that myself. But it's yeah.
Over the years, I've had a couple of people that have recognized it, and then I've had a couple of people sort of ask about it, and then I had a cousin who made a joke and asked if it was a Jenga tattoo, and I said, haha, no. So but I didn't
in Iraq. I was in Iraq, and the guy saw my tattoo. He says, I like your tattoo. I said, thanks. He says, I know what it is. And he pulled down his shirt, and he had the Arashikage tattoo on his chest, on his sternum.
Yeah. As a guy who has a sternum tattoo, motherfucker, did that shit hurt.
That's what I've
heard. Oh my God.
Never going to get one because I have wire from a previous open heart surgery. I have wire going up my sternum.
Yes,
from when they were done with the work.
Yep.
And I can't even stand metal to touch it. It gives me that weird feeling like when you chew on tin foil when you've got metal fillings.
Yeah.
really strange.
That gives me
It's
dental
gone.
problems just thinking about it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's yeah. So I feel that I'm very protective of my sternum now. I'm just like, anytime I'm glad that sternum piercing isn't a thing, because I'd have to run away from people.
Yeah. Right.
yeah, because the sternum tattoo I have is black and white. It wasn't supposed to be, but it hurt so much to get it done. I just never went back for the color. I was like, nope, I'm out. I am out. It's better as a black and white tattoo because, well, yeah, I have never otherwise crapped out on getting a tattoo finished or covered over or whatever. But that one, I'm just like, no, that once was enough. If I had only known, I would have gotten something smaller. But
Well, how big is it? Your
I am not showing it, but it is about this big.
Oh man, that's a long sitting.
It's a phoenix. So it's not a big, colorful, eye-catching, awesome, impressive phoenix. It's basically Fawkes sitting in Professor Dumbledore's office just before it dies, when it's all crispy looking,
Yeah.
before it regenerates, because my black and white phoenix is not impressive, but that is how it was meant to be. I totally wimped out on that one.
Maybe
Remember
when
when
you'll
I get it, I got a tattoo when I got my paramedic certification a long time ago, and the guy next to me was getting a sternum, and he was like tatted head to toe, and he was just screaming like a stuck pig.
Damn.
Yeah.
I do remember, because the person that I was with, because I'd met a friend of mine over there, and the person that I was with and the tattoo artist both said, wow, you're taking this very well. And I said, it was something to the effect of, I'm really not. They said, no, you're just squirming. A lot of people, they're screaming and yelling. I said, I'm internalizing. So basically, I think the reason I couldn't go back and get it was I burned out part of my soul trying to internalize the horrific pain of the sternum tattoo. I don't regret the imagery. I do regret the placement.
Yeah. Because it's like I've wanted to get like an arc reactor. That I was like, I just remember that guy getting that sternum tattoo when I got my Star of Life, when I got my paramedic cert. I'm like, I don't want it that bad.
certain things like that just don't sound appealing. Anything in that area, getting, I don't know, like for example, initiation into being airborne, having that pin punched in your chest over and over. I don't like that.
Ow, no.
Yeah.
That kind of
I never got to airborne school. I was supposed to go. I never got there. So instead, I pissed off the government and they sent me to Oklahoma. That's how you get to Fort Sill, is you end up making somebody mad because you couldn't go airborne. So
you could up in Utah though.
Huh?
You could have wound up in Utah.
Wow, that's so much
Utah
worse.
is better than
Didn't even know
Oklahoma.
that.
I used to live in the Dark region. That's the beautiful place. Like I never lived in the desolate Netherlands of the Dust Bowl.
I mean, it turns out I needed to go there because I met the person that I reproduced for my first child with. So it turns out I did actually have to go there. That was part of my destiny. But at the time, I just used to laugh before I even met her, when I was just on base. And I'm just like, this is it. People are like, how'd you end up here? And I'm like, I couldn't go airborne. And this is where they sent me. Because a couple of months before that, somebody else from AIT that moved up before I did also wound up there for the same reason, couldn't go airborne, ended up in the same unit even. So I'm like, really made somebody mad,
Right.
but I tried. But it turns out I have no upper body strength, and they do an awful lot of pull-ups in airborne school. You know what, with having to control the parachute and all. So, but plus I can't run, and they do a lot of that then too.
I hate running.
I'm not a big fan either, but that's just, that's just from age.
Running is the devil.
Brent, but
Running is the devil's outdoor activity.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I hate it. I hate running. I used to do it, but nope.
Yeah, you really have to hit this point of exhaustion, especially if you've got a pack on when you're moving, where you just somehow overcome that exhaustion and something else takes over.
I mean, I do remember that from basic training, where boy did that put me through the ringer. I
went to the Navy.
Yeah, I mean, basic training for me was, man, it really did. It challenged everything. It broke everything that I was to get me through. But I got through it. But the idea of going through worse for airborne, and I'm just like,
well, like, and especially with sorry, we're getting off topic here a little bit, but the specialty of
hey, it's our show, and if people are listening, it's because they're enjoying the conversation. Exactly. And if they aren't listening anymore, well, maybe they'll come back later.
Well, one specialty that I wish that they had a figure for was pararescue.
Yes.
I worked with a guy that told me all about it, and my dad actually had a story from back in the day before pararescue were known. He was in the Air Force and he was out running, and one of these pararescue guys that they run around with these big sandbags on their backs because they have to drop down and carry bodies out.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Place. He got picked up by some dude while he was running. The guy held him on his shoulders and ran a mile. And my dad said that experience, he's like, if I would have been wounded, I wouldn't have made it out alive anyway. Because of how rough the ride was, I guess. But that's
pararescue is my dream job. My dream job.
I can't. My brain can't even fathom having the will and the fortitude to do something like that. I can't. No, it looks cool on TV. So when I joined the Army, here's my joke. I was not an army of one. Anyways, that's what the ad campaign was at the time, and I was maybe an army of 3/4. So I tried. I did my best, but woof.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I have no regrets. I've got lots of stories, and people always say to me, but you don't have any bitterness. And I'm like, what is there to be bitter about? I didn't have what the Army needed me to have. And I gave it, I was all I could be. And it was, but if I wasn't what they needed me to be, then I shouldn't be, because it's like, no, we need the best of the people. And yeah, I couldn't. So, I mean, I got a medical discharge, honorable, but it was an interesting experience that I'm glad I made it as far as I did, but it was
it's funny you mentioned that there hasn't been a figure for pararescue, because I know we had Troy McKee on last year to give us the little sneak peek about the O-ring figures that they're going to do, hopefully either this year or next year. And one of the characters that they're going to do is pararescue.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
That's a big that needs to be filled. I mean, just the stories you could tell around that specialty alone. I mean, when you look at the comic books, everybody, and I go back to the comic books because the cartoon is just, it is what it is.
Right.
It's fun and it's silly, and
Yes.
some of the writing is hilarious actually when you get to be an adult and you're like, oh, some of those writers were actually comedians. And you didn't know it yet. But in the comic books, most of the people have specialties where they can kind of cross over into that area believably. But it's always nice to have like a specialist who's like, this is what I'm here for. This is what I do. I think it's like with Steel Brigade, when those came out, or when you were able to sign up for it, I made my character when I was younger, and you got to make your own file card where you can embellish all your qualifications. And
Oh yeah.
mine was what was it? Codename Red Eye, because I had conjunctivitis at the time, but also I imagined the person on a red eye flight ready to drop at any time,
Nice.
night, and it would have been a night force specialist that you drop in, and because it was, I think it was before the Night Force came out at Toys R Us, and I just always liked that concept. Not for me, that's nothing I would really want to do. Be up all night and drop off into enemy territory with conjunctivitis. But
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to pass on. Well, honestly, the conjunctivitis, I'll pass on that. But the night raid stuff, again, did a little bit of that in training, but yeah, I'm just the silent infiltration thing. No, some of us can't do it. But
I-
memories.
for a hardwood floor, and I weigh nothing. I'm 5'9" and I weigh nothing, and I still can't walk across the hardwood floor without making too many noises. Even with those ninja moves you learn from the books, if you've ever read one as a kid, where
Yes.
Steve teaches you the art of invisibility or whatever.
Yes.
And
very well.
yeah,
Paladin
and I-
Press. Adam Builder used to publish those.
yeah, but there's all kinds of specialties to customize, which is cool, and it's fun to go outside of what's already there,
Yes.
especially the more you learn about different things that you never knew about before.
Yeah, that's, I mean, one of my favorite customs to make is SEAL Team customs. And I mean, I've got a whole box, 15-figure custom box set that I made. And each one is a different like specialty of the SEALs. And I keep, it's funny you should mention pararescue, because it's like, I really should make a pararescue custom sometime. And because it's, like I said, it's my dream job. I mean, I've been a paramedic 22 years. So that's what I would have done if I'd gone into the Air Force and had been physically capable of doing it as well. But
Yeah,
and I knew a lot of the pararescue guys. I worked for some of them when I was overseas, knew a lot of the guys, but I've never made a pararescue custom, because I don't know that I could do it justice,
Yeah, you could. I've seen your SEALs and your military realistic stuff. I think it's in your wheelhouse more than it is in mine. If I were to do one, it would be it would have a lot of inaccuracies.
maybe
because I would take liberties like with the old GI Joes, where they are a specialty, but they may be wearing something completely ridiculous that would not be that you wouldn't be wearing in combat or whatever, whether
Yes.
it be a beret or an open vest.
Those are some of my absolute favorites, that neon 90s stuff. I love some of that stuff.
Those are some
Yeah,
of my
I
favorite
love
customs to
most
make,
of
is
that
to take-
stuff.
is to take those type of people. I mean, the figure that really got me started reimagining GI Joe as more of a realistic was Sneak Peek. You know, I know JD's not a big fan of Sneak Peek, but I made a
No, I
Sneak
make
Peek.
a joke. I make a joke that Sneak Peek is a perfect figure to represent people like me.
So I made a more
That's
realistic, like
my
a military
joke.
realistic Sneak Peek custom, and people were like,
You know,
"This is what GI Joe should be."
Stephen King's son,
Yeah.
the artwork.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I
That's
had the figure I liked. I did notice, but eventually over time, a lot of those figures did become bulkier, like a lot of the Battle Force 2000. Some of those others were very, very padded up and thick.
Definitely, but that's one of my favorite types of customs to make is to take some of the more, I don't want to say ridiculous, but because some of those specialties, when you read the file card, they're really cool characters. Just
Yeah,
the figures didn't necessarily exemplify the badassatry that was in the file cards. And
They were being made for a slightly different audience than they were at
fair
the
enough,
beginning.
but that's
So,
like I said, that's one of my favorite things to do is to like go back through some of those, and it's like, okay, the basic concept is fantastic, the file card is amazing. Let's make an updated version of that character and that figure to really show what could be done with that idea.
yeah. That's why I love Marauder Task Force stuff, because you could go through there and for a reasonable price, you can get a pretty good military realistic figure made with just what they have.
Yes.
And you know, you can paint it however you want or leave it as is. But I mean, that's a really cool resource.
Absolutely.
I like that. I also like the boss fight fantasy stuff and the like the superhero builds of the different blanks and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm all over the map with what I like. But back when I was
that at all.
I was gonna say I like everything from the 4-inch Fortnite figures. I don't find them to be particularly custom friendly. I've tried on a few. I end up using a few parts, but the actual, I love them aesthetically. I don't find any pleasure in trying to customize them and make them. I keep wanting to reel them up just a little bit, and I'm like, no. So it's purely become a collector line for me. Collector. I've never played Fortnite. I don't want to play Fortnite. I like the characters, but I adore Marauder Task Force. I have to make another order, but I'm resisting for a little while longer. I am resisting. Boss fight I've gotten into. I'm so excited about the Zorro figures that
we should have mentioned that
the other day.
Completely forgot that they announced the Zorro.
I am so excited because I've got the basic Zorro open, but when they had a sale on some in-stock stuff last year, I ordered the Zorro and Tornado set with the intention of opening it, and I didn't yet because it's so nice just the way it is that, yes, I've left it in the package. Shut up, Ryan.
That is hilarious because I tore into, I'm usually the one that leaves stuff in the package, and I tore into my Zorro and Tornado the second it got here.
Well, I tore into my regular Zorro, but see, I ordered my regular Zorro pre-ordered like way before, so I didn't necessarily need to break into my Zorro and Tornado set because I already had the basic one.
I got both at the same time.
And that was my first.
I'm opening both these bastards.
That Zorro, that was the first Boss Fight Studio figure I ever bought, and I've come on board since. I I can't buy even a fraction of it that I would like to buy, but I have gotten into using the parts and stuff, and I'm a fan. And
I backed the Fantasy Kickstarter myself.
So, but yeah, I buy whatever that I like. I mean, I got to be a lot pickier now than I used to be, but even now, I don't care about the scale. I don't care about the line. I don't care, whatever. If I like a thing, I'm going to buy it. And all of the toys that come into my collection, there's an unspoken agreement they have with me. There is a chance that they will become custom fodder at some point, and they have to deal with that. So my toys are all subject to being customized. It doesn't mean they will be, but there is always the threat.
I can relate to that.
And as far as being all over the board, I mean, I card all my customs. So I got G.I. Joe on this wall. I got Star Wars on this wall. And the wall that you can't see is like all my movie and TV show customs and all my Marvel customs and my autographed customs, like my autographed Agent Coulson.
Damn it. I'm jealous of that custom. Damn it. I have bitterness.
Sergeant Savage figure autographed by Kirk Bazigian. That was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Nice.
That is cool.
I was a fan of Joe Kubert from the time I can remember. And when the one thing I liked about that Sergeant Savage line was just that it was made, first of all, with the art it was made with, and that it was, you know, you gotta face it, it was a Sergeant Rock ripoff, but it was, for what it was, I like that World War II military.
The great ideas are always worth ripping off.
Yeah. And yeah, I even shrunk some of those Sergeant Savage heads. Nice. Because the sculpts on those are very decent. And at the size they are, you shrink them down, the detail becomes better. That's right. What's good about shrinking down some heads is,
oh, that's cool.
I don't think the detail is going to be good when you shrink it down, but it gets better somehow. The detail is cool. Wow. And I found that with many of the heads I've shrunken.
I've heard that before. I don't remember who told me that, but I was chatting with a customizer a long time ago that did casting, and I was asking about shrinking and stuff, and they said, yeah, when you shrink it down, the detail actually gets better. But if you try and enlarge something, a lot of times you lose a lot of the detail.
Yeah, especially if it's a soft sculpt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of those, like going back to Valor versus Venom, some of the sculpting in some of those is so detailed that it only gets better when you make them bigger, because they're not pinhead size anymore.
Yeah.
They're regular. And then you can see that they've got detailed emblems carved into them. And I just always feel bad for the people that put the work into those where it didn't come out as they wanted, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
that had to be hard.
Yeah. I took the old O-ring comic pack Quinn head, carved off the fur, and I upsized that for a bigger body, and that came out really well. Nice. Wish I had it with me though, but it's one of my favorite that I've done so far, because the sculpt on that was very, looked just like Quinn, and but you know, that figurehead was kind of small.
I was one of those that was epically disappointed with the comic packs for that reason, because there was so much potential to finally have comic book versions of some of these characters that that we'd known for years in the books. And especially in the case of like the original 13, it was a new way to get new versions of some of those characters that had been lost to time.
Yeah.
But I bought all of the first wave of them, and that my overwhelming was dim because all of the brand new head sculpts that they spent money paying somebody to sculpt and to tool for these brand new comic accurate heads, they were all half the size they should have been. I mean, you look at the comic pack Hawk and the comic pack Zap, and their head sculpts are teeny tiny, like they're compressed, and
I was thinking of
it's so sad.
the Scarlet in her Karate Gi.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, she had that, like it was like cantaloupe on top of a neck, and so Jinx was never a large, like it was never, you never imagined the frame of that figure being large until you put that tiny Scarlet head on it, and suddenly it looked like a Battle Core version of Jinx.
Right.
I mean, that was tragic.
It came out, but then again, I was, I looked the other way on a lot of those issues.
Oh, I did too. I bought the hell out of them anyways. I bought every single one of them. I was just sad that the heads were just not right. And how you can enlarge all those heads and make them proper size, but I no longer have the figures that made up those parts that I could even recreate those and improve on them. I don't have those anymore. It's sad.
I just take them, I cut off the neck, drill them out, and they go on Modern Era.
Yeah.
Get big enough to do scale with Boss Fight and Marauder, and
that's true. Yeah.
And it's tricky getting them just right to the right size. Some of them I overshot. I had that direct to consumer Outback head, and I left it in the solution too long. The secret solution is mineral spirits. I left them open too long, and then the head became massive, and it was just about to the point where it could have fit on a 1/12 scale figure. Oof. I'm not into but I really don't. I keep the scope of what I make pretty narrow, and but then what happens with a mold that you submerge in mineral spirits to make it enlarge? Then you have to wait for it to evaporate the mineral spirits, and it'll shrink back down to the original size. And you have to catch that perfect size as it's shrinking down and down and down. And so I made like probably about 12 different sizes of that head going down before I got the right one, because I just had to wait for it, pour the mold out, size it up.
I admire your patience and your drive to perfect it. I really do.
I don't know if it's, to be honest, but it's something that like I'm in the process of learning. So that's the fun part. A lot of people, once they learn it and they get good at it, the
learning part is not the fun part. That is absurd, sir. There is no fun. I mean, there's a little bit of fun, but not that much in the learning process, sir. Anyways, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not.
Or like, why don't you just 3D scan this thing and print it off at a bigger scale? And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have a machine to do that. Maybe one day, but why not do it the hard way first?
Well, yeah, it's the path of least resistance or whatever, or it's you're just going in the opposite direction. It's something that I kind of wish that I could. The process of it, when we had AVAC on the show, I told Kobe, I said my admiration for you learning to upscale and do all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't I don't, yeah. And he said, yeah, you got to be a process guy. And I said, I am exactly at the opposite end of anything that is the process. No, it's tedious. It's awful. I'm so glad that other people can do the process so
Well,
I
it's
don't have to.
time out. It's really, a lot of projects take a lot longer than you think they will. I like the way AVAX Lab runs, where they don't sell it unless they have it in stock,
Yeah.
because
Oh, I
it's
think that's amazing.
Yeah.
when you, and then it has to be made, and any numerous amount of things can go wrong in that process. And so, you know, there's a, it's good when somebody has product when you're actually buying it and it's just ready to ship, ready to go.
Yeah.
The waiting part, a lot of people, I've waited months and months when I knew I would wait. And back then it was worth it to me. Then I got impatient and thought, well, why don't I just learn how to do this on my own? And then I'm only waiting on myself. That can be just as hard. I've got projects that are lines that I'm way behind on. And I'm glad I'm not a seller at this point, but I don't think I would get into selling if I didn't do it like AVAX Lab does,
We have it.
or some of those that I've gotten things from, because I don't know.
You know what? Once I
um,
order something, I'm
people
not
have-
worried about how long it takes to get it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to use it right away after I get it anyways, not usually. So
I've had parts I've held on to for years that I waited in the mail for, you know, maybe a couple of months, and I still haven't even used them.
Right. Yeah. I'm
Me
waiting
too.
on something that I should have gotten in November from somebody, and it's like, you know what? I'll get it when I get it. And
Yeah,
whenever I probably won't use it right away when I get it, because I'll still need to buy. You know, I need a Marauder figure, so I'll get around to making a Marauder order whenever, and then that gets here whenever, and then I'll sit down and put it in the queue of my customizing, and then I'll get to that whenever. So it's like, yeah, when it shows up, and I'll get to it when I get to it.
yeah. What was it? I'm having a lapse of thought here. I was thinking about something, and then I just totally lost it.
Oh, I hate that.
It'll come back.
welcome to my every minute existence.
Yeah, I've got squirrel brain going on. It had to do with casting. I know something about that. Oh yeah, I still do have to say, for any other casters out there, I'm an amateur. I'm not. I don't claim to be peer on par with anybody else. You know, there's some people who are pros at it. I'm a hobbyist at this point, but it's fun, and you got to learn somewhere. As I've told Brian, I look at some of my old molds and casts, and they make me giggle a little bit because of the way I went about doing them, because I just didn't know. And you know,
But it's funny you should say that, because I've said the same thing a couple of times in my tutorials about customizing, and especially painting. I mean, painting's my thing. You know, a lot of people have got a thing. Painting is definitely my thing. And I talk about the kind of the thing where I suggest, what my kind of recommendation for people is, you want to see the color, you don't want to see the paint. So you don't want to paint, you don't want to see paint strokes, you don't want to see bubbles, you don't want to see the paint caking. You want to see the color, you don't want to see the paint. And I look back at my old customs, and it's like, man, yeah, it looks like I melted crayons onto that thing, because that paint is so thick.
It's not that bad.
It's that bad.
It's not that bad.
And I just try and remind people when I'm doing tutorials, it's like, man, you got to start somewhere, though. You know, you gotta learn. It's like, I thought it looked cool then, and I look back at it and I'm like, oh my God, it's horrible, you know. But
Everybody
You
goes
know,
through that.
yeah, it's a process. It's a learning process, and that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to do the YouTube channel is to like here's some stuff that kind of like help you along, because those resources weren't there when I got into customizing. Because like I said before, most people just were like, I'm not going to tell you how I did this, and I hated that, and I don't do that.
I've always been too shy to reach out, so I haven't really had that problem. But I also guessed that that could be a problem, so that made me shy away even further.
Yeah,
from just like that. And so I would try to observe and try to learn by observation and deduction, whatever, however I could. But there are some things where somebody just needs to clue you in. I mean, going back to the wet palette, who would know about a wet palette unless you told them about it? There's some.
I didn't know about it.
Or-
One of our guests,
Oh,
yeah, Jim Godfrey told me about it.
Yeah. And with sculpting and sculpting materials, it takes a while to find the stuff you like.
Yes.
I tried some stuff. I like green stuff, but I've also, it's been recommended to me that I use other stuff.
Yeah, see, sculpting is one thing I'm not particularly good at. I don't like doing it unless I absolutely have to. And I used the Avs Epoxy Sculpt for a long time, and I recently switched to Procreate, and I really like it. It's a lot easier.
Procreate. That's the stuff I want to try out.
I
I've
really
seen a lot of people that do excellent sculpting work with the Procreate, and I'm like, I want those results. Green stuff, you can get fine detail, you can have flexibility, but there are some things about green stuff, and it may just be something with my eyesight, but I can't see the detail as vividly with it. I mean, I love the medium. I love how it takes a while to dry, and it's not so brittle.
You can fuck with it for a while after it's done. When
Yeah.
you realize, when you pick it back up and you realize, no, this needs more help, you can still mess with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I've been using green stuff for more than a decade. I've only just gotten into the Procreate. I haven't used it a lot. I've used it on a couple of things, and I do like it. It is better than, because I've always stuck with the green stuff, because before any other sculpted medium I tried, I was never even close to as happy with it. So the Procreate, it's good. It's a good secondary. I'm not totally on board with it yet. I haven't used it a whole lot, but I'm gonna stick with it because yes, there are a lot of things that I can't do with the green stuff, detail wise, that sometimes I just want to do the detail and I want to be able to put it over there and just let it cure. And I don't want to keep messing with it.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I like both. I'm a fan of both.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try Procreate because it's just been recommended so often.
I tried it because Brian had success with it, and he hates sculpting. So I'm like, if he can like it enough to not mind sculpting, then I'm like, it's worth a try for me. It might suck, I might hate it, but I didn't hate
right
it
now on my female Crimson Guard. All that sculpted, and I sculpted most of the stuff on my Fast Blast Viper. So,
and that's with the Procreate.
Yeah, that's with the Procreate.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, his his Black Widow custom had like sculpted hair, sculpted jacket. I'm like, wow, you really like the Procreate if you're sculpting a belt on the jacket. So that's why I was convinced. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try this stuff. So even if I hate it, at least I tried it and I didn't hate it. So
yeah, because
I'm like, it made Brian like sculpting. Yeah.
I love the Jim Lee Black Widow figure, Marvel Legends. I have one. I love it. because that's what she was when I got into comic books, and I'm like, I want this in 1/18 scale. I tried to make a custom of it, a jacket, I think from Indiana Jones, and it just looked horrible. I just hated it. So I started all over from scratch, and I'm like, I really just need to sculpt the jacket. I don't want to do it. Okay, I'm gonna do it. So I did, and I switched up to the Procreate, and I did her hair, I did the jacket. I'm like, okay, it didn't come out half bad. So
things will generally turn out well if you really want it done and there's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you have an eye for detail and you can compare artwork versus sculpture or,
Yes.
any kind of proportion issues, it's worth it. But it is even something I've shied away from recently, getting into casting, because I'm kind of like, well, I can just modify something. There are enough heads out there and enough heads sculpts in my library that, with what you can get from, different online retailers to add on, like berets, jackets, things like this. Urban Rev Toys, by the way, I got some soft goods with them that have been invaluable for some customs.
Really?
And specifically a lab coat, and another one,
Nice.
a vinyl trench coat that I couldn't have got the look by sculpting it.
Yeah.
And I've got the same effect. Or I couldn't have just used a stand-in sort of plastic piece to get what I wanted.
I can vouch for Rogelio. I've known him since the convention in 2006 in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And then I saw him again at the 2018 Joe convention. So I've known him for years, and I can vouch. I've gotten some of his little jackets that he makes and he does fantastic work. I remember when I was hanging out with him at the convention in New Orleans, I was hanging up in the room where he was sharing with a bunch of other people, and he was sewing on a sewing machine, this little lab coat or something for somebody for an order that he had just taken downstairs at the convention. And one of the roommates said, we're going to go downstairs, but obviously he's going to stay up here and keep going with his tiny sweatshop that he was. So, and that has always stuck with me, because after watching him have the patience on a traditional, you want to think he's using a little travel size sewing machine for the little coat. No, full size sewing machine. These tiny stitches in this little coat that's going to fit something that's this size. It is the most fascinating and just nightmare inducing thing for me. I just imagine I never could get the hang of a sewing machine. My mother, growing up, she was always sewing stuff. So I tried, but every time the line would get stuck I'm just like, no. And then I'm watching him do this tiny freaking skirt amazing for this thing. And I'm just like, I'm so glad there's people that do this so I don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm no good at sewing. I even managed a men's suit department where I was in charge of doing the tailoring, not the sewing part, but making sure that the fabric was cut just so to be form fitting. That I understood that part, but I would send the stuff back to seamstresses to have them do the sewing part, because I'm not skilled with sewing at all. I was even briefly in 4-H when I lived in San Diego. It was weird. I was in an all male 4-H troop.
All right.
Wait, what's 4-H?
I think it's actually supposed to be more for. But,
no, but I mean,
it's kind of like farming Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We
Wait,
practice.
What? Farming.
It's like if you grow up on a farm, it's like Boy Scouts for farmers. Is kind of the best way to put that.
All right. I mean, okay. Considering I never joined the Boy Scouts, but
No,
when I was
4-H,
growing up, when I was growing up, we were raised in the church. We're Episcopalian, and so the churches we went to would have the church equivalent of the Boy Scouts called the Royal Rangers. I
No.
was a Royal Ranger for a couple of years, and you know what? I'm really just not an outdoor person.
So
Okay,
I'm from Colorado.
Not a
And all my
survivalist.
family's from Iowa. So 4-H, I know all about 4-H.
yeah, I don't. So I mean, Royal Rangers in church, okay, but I mean, okay, I could see a farmer thing for the, but I just okay, I've never heard of it, so I was just curious.
Well, with this particular one, it's supposed to be for girls, but there were no girls to fill up the
Why was it supposed to be for girls? I don't understand.
but because it was mostly hand sewing and kind of like more home eccy kind of stuff, home ec
Oh.
stuff.
Oh yeah, because men don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course not. We go out and we lift weights and we shoot the enemy and all that manly stuff. No,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
well,
We
Boy
some of
Scout
us do, some of us not.
targets, not moving targets, but targets.
Definitely a target that moves slowly.
Had us and her sons, and she absorbed us in. And so we sat around this picnic table and we learned some things that we wouldn't have learned otherwise.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, that's cool.
I was also in Boy Scouts too. I never got my Eagle Scout, but
That's a tough one to get.
yeah.
I was never a Boy Scout, but I don't. Yeah, the whole going after the badge thing, you know, if you could see it, you could be it. Yeah, I was never really that kid. Like competition and the whole striving for a badge on a thing that I don't actually want to wear. Yeah. There's reasons why I've gotten to the point in life where I have and why I haven't gotten further. There's reasons. And it could be traced all the way back to childhood.
I've never looked at them since. I wasn't really Boy Scout material, which is why I created the Bastard Scouts. I'll keep this short.
What?
I like the
You earn
sound.
demerit badge. When you do something shitty, you do something some bastard would do, like I don't know, like you kick some old man's cane away from him or something. Taking a cup from a panhandler, something really a bad person would do. You get a demerit badge for that.
Demerit badge. I love it.
You're just basically trying
5
to be.
points from Gryffindor.
Yep. And so, yeah.
No, as a paramedic, I've taken care of many Bastard Scouts over the years. I can guarantee you.
There's only, I think there's only one other one in Utah, and he reminds me about this because I came up with it with him, and we just thought of too many things to do. That's why I need to learn how to sew, is because you can't make those demerit badges without learning how to sew.
Yeah, right.
But I could have a million of them, and I think I could recruit some pretty rotten people to join up and let this thing spread across the country.
I want a demerit badge. I'm just saying I want one.
The next time you do something lousy, report back to me, and I will grant you that demerit badge.
Fantastic.
Like you go in and you're watching TV and you unplug the TV and walk away. That's grounds for being a bastard right there.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
That's like hiding the remote on somebody. No, that's not cool. I can lose it on my own just fine. Thanks. I don't need any help with it.
It reminds me of this time when I was working my first job as a paramedic. We put, so the ambulance, you switch off the battery on the old ambulances, you switched off the battery. It was a switch on the seat. So you could do anything to the ambulance, but it wouldn't do anything until you switched on the main battery. So one of the other crews, I got a piece of paper, made a funnel, and got powdered coffee creamer, and put it in the air in the vents, the like AC vents, and then turned the AC up to full. And well, the battery was off, and then when they got a call, they got in, turned it on, turned the battery on, poof, they got covered from the head
Yeah, I
to
find
the
that-
waist in powdered creamer.
You know, ventilation sabotage, small scale, but you know, it's still, you know, as long as somebody can kind of get a laugh out of it, if you can convince them, like going back to the old man scenario, maybe you kick the cane and he looks at you like, what, bastard, what'd you just do? And you're like, oh, you know, I thought it was a snake. And then you hand it back to him.
Well, I'm
And
not
he's like,
done
"Ah."
because
You know,
after they got
got-
back from that call, I did it again,
oh no.
and I got him another time. So I
Wait,
did
did
that.
you dupe the same people with the same trick a second time in a row?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is one I've never tried. One I've heard of that has to do with that. A friend of mine told me you take a fish and you just let it get rancid, really, really bad. And then you take that fish and the outside of a car where it inhales air in for the air circulation. I shouldn't be saying this. People get ideas. They'll actually do it. You know, like type stuff. But you know, you put this fish, but that's too big. Bastard Scouts don't. We don't want anybody having permanent fish smell in their car because it's bad enough when somebody goes into the office. Had a person at the VA that did this one time in a small space, microwave fish, and it stunk up the whole place all day long. And I know she pissed me off. And she enjoyed her fish to top it off. So that's like she's kind of really putting her ass in my face. And you know, I should have given her a demerit badge that day. That's something that, you know, eventually that smell goes away. Fish in the car vent, rotten, rancid fish, that apparently lingers longer. It's a little
I
bit
would
more.
imagine, yeah, I would.
I don't want to be a complete bastard to the point where you're called a different expletive, you know,
Yes.
or where the police be involved. That's another rule of the Bastard Scouts of America.
Don't get caught.
Anything you do, it can't be illegal.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right,
Gotta be on
we
the
are
level.
just over 2 hours, so I'm going to say that's about it for this episode, because I got to get going here. Edward, thank you for being on the show. We had a great time. It was.
I
great
wish I
to-
had some plug other than your show right now and some other folks I've mentioned on here. Yeah. One day I may have some site up and running, you know, peddling cast goods, but I think by the time I get that done, people will have 3D printers in their microwaves.
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know.
Yeah.
But thank you for being on the show, and both JD and I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks, man.
your-
Yeah, it was nice
hard
talking
work.
to you, like actually talking to you on there.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
so
I
that was-
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a fantastic time. I think, as always, please do that fun social media stuff. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.